Hi, I'm the Rick and Rick Turns, and today I'm going to talk about friction polish. Everything you never wanted to know, and a lot more besides. I want to talk about what friction polish is, how you mix it up, and how you use it. Before I start into a lot of detail, I'm going to just give you a quick run through, a summary of what I'll be saying today. First of all, friction polish, a very simple and easy way of getting a high shine on a wood turning piece while it's still on the lathe. The polish is applied directly with a rag to the running object. The basic formula for friction polish is 1 part shellac, 1 part alcohol, and 1 part boiled linseed oil. It's just that simple. You can put on 1 coat, you can put on multiple coats. Friction polish is normally made with shellac, but there are people who have a friction polish that is based on lacquer. Friction polish is food safe. Now, there's a lot of discussion about this on the internet. You can certainly find lots of opinions on it, but everything I've read pretty much ends up saying, yeah, it's food safe. I'll go into that more later. Friction polish is based on shellac. It's susceptible to staining from water if the water sits on it for a while, so don't use it on your diving mask. It can also be marred by alcohol, so don't use it on your drinking table. It is not as durable as varnishes and lacquers are. However, it gives a great finish for something that's not going to be handled a huge amount, a weed pot or a Christmas ornament or something like that. It's a terrific finish because it's really quick and really easy and actually not very expensive if you mix it yourself. And we have 2 bottles of friction polish right here. This one, I think you can see the difference in color from here and down here. Well, this is basically, it's been sitting for a while. It's separated already. The shellac mix down here, the oil mix up here. This one has been shaken up just before I started the camera. So this is the way it should look when you decide to use it. The first ingredient of friction polish that I want to talk about is shellac. Shellac actually has a lot of depth to it. I found out a lot of stuff I didn't know about shellac when I was researching for this video. The earliest written evidence for shellac being used takes it back to about 3,000 years ago. However, it does not have a shelf life that long. Shellac is used in a coating for candies and as a food glaze, as a wood finish, as we know, sanding sealer, varnish. It used to be used as electrical insulation on wiring for motors. It's been used to coat gramophone records. It's used as a protective coating on paintings, that is art type paintings. It's used in cosmetics, and it's also used as a stiffener for hats. It's a very versatile liquid. Shellac is also used in French polishing. Now, if you're not into woodworking, just wood turning, you may not have heard of French polishing. French polishing is a fairly labor-intensive method of getting an extremely good finish on a flat surface. And it uses polish, it uses shellac, and it uses some type of very, very fine abrasive, and it involves rubbing for a long time. But from what I'm told and what I've read, you get a great finish with it. Now, shellac is both non-toxic and FDA approved. And that is, the FDA gives it a rating or whatever of GRAS, which means generally recognized as safe. And that means after curing. Don't drink it out of the can. You can get a number of varieties of shellac depending on where it came from, and those range in colors from light blonde all the way down to a dark brown. Shellac Is 100% natural. And you probably already know this if you've been into wood turning or woodworking for a while. Shellac is produced by the lac bug. It's a secretion of the female lac bug on certain trees in northern India and parts of Thailand. It is produced as dry flakes or as buttons, just like it sounds like. It's a little round disc. Mostly I've seen it for sale as either flakes or the liquid, which is easier to use. The flakes or the buttons are mixed with alcohol to make the liquid product like this. Now there's a couple of other varieties of shellac, and that's waxed versus non-waxed. Along with the lac secretions, there is some wax naturally produced. It's about 3 to 5% wax by nature. Now you can buy shellac flakes or shellac liquid either waxed or unwaxed. The big distinction is whether it has wax or not. Now, the big reason you might want to know is if you're top coating a waxed shellac, it is conceivable you could have a problem with adhering other types of finish on it. Now, I've read a lot of posts on the web looking for a definite answer to that. What I've seen is both ways. A lot of people say, hey, I use varnishes and lacquers right on top of shellac, waxed shellac, and I've never had any problem. But then other people's caution against it. So if you have any concerns about it, you might want to get a de-wax brand. Now, if you go to the store, Home Depot or wherever, and you buy Zinsser's Bullseye shellac, what you're going to get here is a waxed shellac. Now, I emailed Zinsser's and asked them this specifically to make sure I knew what was going on, because guess what? It's not showing on the can. That's okay. They produce a product called Seal Coat as a sealer, as you might expect from the name, and it is de-waxed. So if you really want to go the de-waxed route, you want to buy the Seal Coat from Zinsser's. Now, interestingly enough, I have not found another producer of shellac, liquid shellac. I'm not sure if Zinsser's is the only one, and incidentally, they're a subsidiary of Rust-Oleum. But when I looked to purchase shellac in a liquid form, I couldn't find anything other than Zinsser's for sale. Now, liquid shellac is measured, the dilution or the concentration is measured by what they call pound cut. And I'm sure you've run across this before. Pound cut refers to the number of pounds of shellac flakes or shellac buttons that are dissolved into a gallon of alcohol. So if you buy something like Zinsser's here, Bullseye shellac, waxed, this is 3-pound cut. It also doesn't say that on the can, but you can find out by going to the manufacturer's website. And a 3-pound cut means they took 3 pounds of shellac, dry shellac, and they mixed it in with a gallon of alcohol before they put it in this can. If you're going to dilute shellac, as we're going to do for a friction polish, unless you want to use it straight from the can, which is 3-pound cut, that would work. But if you want to dilute it, say you're going to go 1-to-1, like I mix up my friction polish with, and as Captain Eddie has suggested, if you want to go 1-to-1 from this liquid, you put in a cup of the shellac and you put in a cup of alcohol, and what you now have is a 1.5-pound cut. So when you're looking for a shellac to start with a friction polish, you may want to know what the pound cut is. When I was looking online at Zinsser's products, what I found was that almost all shellacs are either a 3-pound cut or a 4-pound cut. Zinsser's right here, you can get this in a gallon form, in a gallon quantity, as a 4-pound cut. As far as I could see, the quart size was only available as a 3-pound cut. Now, the shellac product right here has more than just shellac in it. Not much, but a little bit, because it's been made with denatured alcohol, I think. If you look on the back of the can, right in here, you're going to see the ingredients. And the ingredients are ethanol, isopropanol, methyl isobutyl ketone, pure shellac, and water. water. Unfortunately, the can here doesn't show the percentage of these ingredients. And if you go to their website, you can get more detail on it. And this is mostly shellac. If you really want to know more about it, find the material safety data sheet from the manufacturer, and they're easy to find on Google. I found them for all kinds of things, in shellac and boiled linseed oil and denatured alcohol and everything. The MSDS, it's basically talking about safety. Most of the sheets that I looked at also said what was in it. Some of them didn't go into a great deal of detail. Some of them would say, hey, it's 90% shellac, it's 10% ethanol, or all kinds of stuff, and then 0.5% of methyl ethyl ketone or whatever. So if you're really concerned about what's there, whether the product is safe to drink out of the can, go to the MSDS and take a look at it. Shellac is flammable. Don't use it around an open fire, or if you've got a torch going in the shop. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, I think, don't drink it. The shellac itself, when dry, is edible, but when it's been mixed up into a liquid like this, it's got denatured alcohol in it, and denatured alcohol, poisonous. The next important component of friction polish is a dilution liquid for shellac, and for that we want to use denatured alcohol. Now, why is it denatured? It's not the same thing as naturalization, where you're an immigrant. Denatured alcohol is ethanol, which is the stuff you can buy to get drunk, that has had poisons added to it, so that it's not really a good idea to drink this stuff. Denatured alcohol is also called methylated spirits. The reason for that is because it's usually, one of the poisons added to it is methanol, which is wood alcohol, which is poisonous and will cause blindness and death if you drink enough of it. Now, ethanol, as I said, you can get it drinkable from the liquor store. Okay, so why do they put poison in denatured alcohol? Well, really, it's to keep the drunks from mobbing the hardware stores. No, but it is something like that. If the manufacturers were to produce it as ethanol, yeah, you could drink it, but then it would be subject to sin taxes from every local government all over the place, and the price would go up, whoa, substantially. So it has methanol added to it, and frequently there's a couple of other poisonous ingredients added to it. Methanol is also known as methyl alcohol, and the denatured alcohol that is made with methanol is frequently called methylated spirits. I think in the UK and maybe other parts of the world. In the US, we generally see it as denatured alcohol. There's another type of alcohol you can get. Go up to your drugstore and you can buy this. Rubbing alcohol, it's got various names. This one happens to be labeled alcohol, and it's isopropyl alcohol. And it is, furthermore, 91% isopropyl alcohol. This is not really suitable for friction polish. What you really want is denatured alcohol. The reason is, this generally has some other additive. It is still an alcohol, just like ethanol. It's in the same chemical family. So it'll work, but when I used it, I didn't get the best results with it. And possibly the reason is it's been diluted with other liquids. This container doesn't say a lot about that, but it does say on the back, an active ingredient, water. You don't really want water in there. Not great for your shellac mix. So I don't know if that's what caused the poor finish when I used this, but I went back to denatured alcohol pretty quick. On the front, this one says 91% isopropyl. On the back, it says water's been added. So I would guess 9% water. Your best bet is denatured alcohol, just like it says on the can. The recommendations I have read for this is use 95% alcohol. If you buy this can, it does not say anywhere on it exactly what the dilutions are. I also read that if you just go to one of your big box stores or the hardware store and you grab a can of denatured alcohol, it may not be even 90% alcohol. It could be as low as 50 to 60% alcohol. So take a look at the can. Maybe there'll be some information on it that says the percentage of alcohol, ethanol, in the can. You want as high a percentage of ethanol as you can get. Now let me say it one more time. Denatured alcohol is poisonous. Don't drink it. Liquid form friction polish has denatured alcohol. It's poisonous. Don't drink it either. And don't use it as salad dressing. Tastes terrible. Denatured alcohol is also quite flammable, so don't use it around the campfire. The third and last major ingredient of a friction polish is boiled linseed oil. Both raw and boiled linseed oil are made from flaxseed. Flaxseed is a natural product. You can eat flaxseed. You can buy it as edible. And you can buy linseed oil that is made for food consumption. It hasn't been modified in any way, and you could eat that. Boiled linseed oil is a little bit different. The boiled linseed oil is used in a lot of products. It's used in varnish and oil paints. It's used in putty. It's used in linoleum. It's used as a sizing in oil gilding. As the flaxseed oil, which is not exactly boiled linseed oil, it's used as a nutritional supplement. And it's used as a preservative on wood and on concrete. It's also used in soaps, and it's used in ink. So boiled linseed oil is used all over the place. Linseed oil, particularly boiled linseed oil, is known as a drying finish. It means that the liquid will polymerize into a hard surface. In medieval times, and possibly at the yearly medieval festival, linseed oil was actually boiled, I mean really and truly boiled, with lead oxide to give a product that was referred to then as boiled linseed oil, and it was used in similar ways that we use it today. Obviously, lead oxide, not a great thing. Eventually they figured that out. Today, boiled linseed oil refers to a combination of raw linseed oil, stand oil, which is produced by heating linseed oil up to about 300 degrees centigrade in the absence of air, and some metallic dryers, which hasten drying. Now, I've looked at a lot of MSDS information on boiled linseed oil. Some of them just say, well, it's 100% boiled linseed oil. Some of them are very specific, and they'll say it's 90%, 99% boiled linseed oil, 0.1% of this particular type of metallic dryer, and 0.2% of some other type of metallic dryer. This can of boiled linseed oil, when I look at it, as with the denatured alcohol can, this doesn't really tell me what's in it. It does tell me, first aid if you drink it or something like that. If you really want to know what's exactly in your boiled linseed oil, look up the manufacturer safety data sheet on that. The MSDS hopefully will have that information. If it doesn't, it will have information on treatment if you decide to drink it or get it on your hands or whatever. I went through a lot of these looking at boiled linseed oil, trying to figure out, gee, is it really safe to use? You know, it's got those metallic dryers in it. As a liquid, it's not safe to drink. But on the other hand, it's not instantly fatal either. Most of the MSDS that I looked at, they said, if ingested, don't try to cause vomiting because of the danger of aspiration of it into the lungs. But they said, the side effects, gastrointestinal upset, etc. Didn't say death or anything like that. So by itself, in the liquid form, it's not deadly. Now there is another type of boiled linseed oil that is hard to find, and that is that is polymerized boiled linseed oil, or just polymerized linseed oil. And in that case, the drying properties have been affected or have been produced by actually boiling it or polymerizing it and no chemical additives have been added. So it really is pure linseed oil at that point. It's not raw. If you use raw linseed oil, your stuff will never dry. But it is boiled linseed oil. It will act just like boiled linseed oil, but it doesn't have any metallic dryers. It has been naturally treated to achieve drying properties that we want to see in boiled linseed oil. It's hard to find though. I went looking for it. I could only find one product being sold that I could positively identify was polymerized linseed oil and did not have any additives, and that is a tried and true brand of Danish oil, which is 100% boiled linseed oil. Not sure why they call it Danish. Maybe the Danish like to put that on their salad or something. Who knows? I looked up a number of the manufacturers' safety data sheets on boiled linseed oil products, all kinds of them, from all kinds of manufacturers, maybe 6 or 8 at least I looked up. And they'll say something like, no hazardous ingredients by OSHA definition, or not hazardous under the Department of Labor definitions. So what's it going to cost to use friction polish? You can either mix it yourself or you can buy a commercial product. I found a lot of variation in the commercial products. Shellac I found selling at around $32, $33 for 8 ounces. Compare that to Mylan's friction polish and Hut Crystal Coat, which are both in the neighborhood of $14 for 8 ounces. Now, if we mix it ourselves, we've got shellac here, and I found prices on it, say, from a low of about $11 up to about $15 per quart. Denatured alcohol, $7 to $8 a quart. Boiled linseed oil, as low as $7 and as high as $16 a quart. So let's assume we are really good shoppers and we buy the minimum cost products, and we've got $11 here, $7 here, $7 here. That comes up to a total of $25. So that gives you 3 quarts of finish for $25, and that comes down to about $8 per quart. Now, a quart's got 32 ounces, so let's reduce that to the size of the finishes, the commercial finishes I talked about, 8 ounces. And so that comes out to about $2 for 8 ounces of homemade friction polish. So we got $2 for 8 ounces of homemade, $33 for 8 ounces of Shellac, $14 for 8 ounces of Mylan's friction polish, and $14 for around 6 ounces of Hut Crystal Coat. So $2 versus 33 or 14 seems like a pretty good cost ratio there to say make your own friction polish. It is possible that the manufacturers know more than I do. Hopefully that's true, and that they've got a product that's really superior to what you can mix. I couldn't really say to that. I used Shellac many years ago. It was great, but after I used up the 1 bottle, which did take a while, I started mixing my own, and the results with my own mix have been great as well. So I'd say, go ahead and mix it yourself if you don't mind the trouble. So how are we going to mix up friction polish to make our liquid? We've got 3 components here. Well, mixing is exactly what you think. Take some from this can, pour it in a container. Take some from this can, pour it in the same container. Take some from this can, pour it in the same container. I think you could probably have figured that out without me telling you, but that's the way you mix it up. And the standard formula that I have seen after searching all over the web is really 1-1-1. 1 part of this, 1 part of this, 1 part of this. Or if you prefer, 1/3 of the total mixture is this, 1/3 of the total mixture is this, and 1/3 of the total mixture is this. This is not the only formula that I found. Some wood turners have reported using a 4-to-1 mixture of shellac to boil linseed oil. I haven't tried that myself. Other wood turners report using tung oil instead of boiled linseed oil. Same dilution, 1-to-1-to-1, but use tung oil instead of boiled linseed oil. I might want to be aware that some products that are or have been advertised as tung oil are actually boiled linseed oil. Danish oil, same thing. The tried and true product called Danish oil is boiled linseed oil. That's not the only thing. I have seen mention of walnut oil, carnauba wax, and shellac mixture. And you can probably guess walnut oil, as long as it hasn't been screwed up with anything, is going to be safe to use. And carnauba wax, which is completely natural and is also used as a food coating, it's safe to use. So that would be a food safe version of friction polish as well. I saw a couple of mentions of people adding a little bit of beeswax to the polish. A teaspoonful to a half a pint of the finish. Now when you mix this stuff up, you do want to end up with a fairly thin, watery liquid. You don't want anything that's really thick. And that's because you want it to go on thin when you put it on the piece on the lathe. If it's too thick, you're probably going to get some streaking in the finish after you polished it. And it'll show up as very tiny white lines, most likely. I've seen that. You want to store your mixture in a cool, dry place and away from light, just to make it last a little bit longer. And finally, remember what I said about separation. Here we have it separated out, but it'll look like this when it needs to be stirred up. You're going to have liquid up here, and you're going to have a thicker looking white stuff down here, which is the shellac. And I have observed even a little bit of separation after only a couple of minutes. So even shake it up, even if it's only been a minute or two since you last put on a coat. So what is the shelf life of friction polish? You mix it up yourself. Well, I mentioned earlier about shellac and 3,000 years old. Okay, the shelf life is not 3,000 years, although I'm planning on testing that, and so far that test is going very well. I've read that the shelf life is about a year. I can't back that up with any real hard evidence, as in stuff from manufacturers that say it's a year shelf life. So if you have your friction polish sitting around for too long, try it out, make sure it's still good. You might save yourself some trouble. Or you could just write a date on the friction polish bottle and throw it out every 6 months, whatever. Now, another thing I want to mention about the friction polish and the shelf life is, depending on the kind of bottle you put it in, the alcohol may evaporate. And of course, it also depends on how tight a seal you have on the lid. The alcohol will evaporate if it has a chance. The polish will get thicker and thicker, and you may need to put some more alcohol in it before you start work. So keep that in mind. Glass jars and plastic Coke bottles are reputed to be impervious to alcohol evaporation, so they might be a good thing to use rather than what I've got here, which is a polyethylene bottle, which is supposed to be, I think, allow alcohol to evaporate. Well, this video is going to be a little longer than what I thought it was going to be, and I'm going to cut it short right here. I had planned on going over to the lathe and show how friction polish is applied to a piece, and maybe address some of the issues that might come up if you put too much on. Try and answer the question, run the lathe fast or run the lathe slow. But video is too long, so I'm going to address all those issues in another video later on. So keep an eye on my friction polish channel. See you next video.